Today I'm kicking off a new series of videos here on my channel called Anatomy of an Image. This is a series where I will share with you one particular image from my portfolio of work that I'm more or less pretty happy with, and then I will also show you all the other images that did not make the cut. The images that led to that final image being created. The ones where I was trying to figure out which lens to use, which focal length to use. Should I get the camera high? Should I get it low? Should I shoot portrait? Should I shoot landscape? Oftentimes, those images are never shared. Like, people don't really show them. They don't talk about them. They just want to show the final image, the one that they're most happy with. Well, in this video today, I want to do something completely different. Like, I just want to take photo editing out of the equation altogether and just talk about composition. Just talk about what's good, what's not so good. It's going to be more of the latter in a lot of these images, and use this as a learning opportunity. So before we begin, I want to give you some context about time and place and location so you have a better sense of what it is that you're looking at here. All of these came from a recent trip of mine to California, where I traveled there to go and do some landscape photography in a place called Alabama Hills. Alabama Hills is in a valley, like it's kind of like in a bathtub almost. Late in the afternoon, the sun would start to get low in the sky, and then you would start to get that beautiful, like, yellow, golden California sun. And it would last for like around 30 minutes, something like that. I mean, it was a really short window. And then the sun drops behind the hills and boom, it's gone. Like, the whole valley just turns dark. Everything is cast in shadow. And I realized then that, if I got out of the valley, well, I effectively had like, an hour and a half, 2 hours to play with before the sun was actually gone, before it would actually drop below the horizon. So maybe I should, just get out and photograph other things, go and find other subjects to photograph instead of, just sitting there and feeling frustrated. So that's exactly what I did. And one of the nights that I went out and I did that and I started exploring, I found this abandoned public swimming pool. And it was such a weird thing to stumble across because, this was not in somebody's backyard. Like, I didn't climb someone's fence and, trespass on their property or anything like that. This was like a public swimming pool that was in this, tiny little town, right there on the edge of the salt flats with these just gorgeous mountains in the background. Just absolutely fantastic back here. It's just an amazing landscape. I just really like the contrast and the juxtaposition between a beautiful, epic landscape and some type of man-made element that has been injected into the scene, something that is interrupting it, something that is almost like invading the space that should not be there. The kind of thing that a photographer would normally like walk around and avoid, or perhaps clone out later on in Photoshop. Well, what if you include it? Like, what if that is just part of it? For example, this image here, there was just something funny to me about it, about this this incredible landscape and this really awful, ugly, utility pole that's just on this hill. And by the way, there were poles running all up and down the coast there. You couldn't avoid them. Well, you could, or just, use Photoshop on them later. But my thought when I saw it was, I was like, well, why not include it? It's part of it. And there was something about including it that actually made the image more interesting. And that's exactly what I was thinking about when I stumbled across this pool, on the edge of this landscape. And I thought, wow, this is so weird and kind of amazing. So I ended up spending a lot of time here. And this image here is the one that I think I'm the happiest with. And I'm going to come back and talk about, why this image, why, what it is about this one in particular that works. But first, let's go back in time and take a look at some of the earlier ones. So this is the very first photo that I took here. And obviously there are some problems. There's like all of this down in here. There's just this foreground that is, just interrupting everything, that is getting in the way. So I, kind of quickly changed my position and then stepped forward a little bit. Now, the reason this image works so much better than the other one is because with this image, the water extends outside the frame. Like, you don't see that boundary. It just seems to continue down and out throughout the bottom of the frame, as opposed to having that hard line that was there before separating the two. So to the viewer, it almost just seems to go on, through eternity. And it also kind of, gets rid of that visual noise down in here. So that's good. So that's somewhat of an improvement. Let's go on to the next image. And now at this point, I'm just kind of like, well, maybe I should try a portrait. Let's see how this goes. And yeah, doesn't really work for this particular image in my opinion. So the thing I really like about this image, and honestly, I wish I had shot it more as a landscape like that, as opposed to a portrait orientation like that. Not really sure why I did that, because it looks pretty good as a landscape. I actually cropped this as a square and edited the image and posted it to my Instagram if you'd like to check me out over there. But the thing that's really strong about this image is the light. I mean, like all this, fantastic light on the side of this structure here, and just wonderful. And this is the kind of thing that is really hard to fake. I mean, it's really hard to do in post. I mean, you either get it in camera or you don't, I think, a lot of times. And this, that western light that was just hitting the side of the building was just so good. By the way, this is the first time that I've done a video like this with an iPad and doing annotations before here. So I'm a little bit new to this, but if you have any recommendations for a good annotation app, I'm just using the built-in camera app on the iPad. Hit me up, let me know. Let me know if there's something better that I should be downloading and testing out for this kind of thing. Okay, so then I returned back to this corner again, the one that I initially shot, and I was trying to get this combination of like, this green grass, not really green, but rather just grass. It's kind of like this yellowy grass, and the water and the steps leading up from the corner here, and then the fence back here. And I was trying to make this work, and I was getting down a little bit low so that the top of the fence up here would stand above the ridge a little bit, so that the geometry of the two would not collide. Because, when you take a photograph, you are essentially collapsing the 3D world into a flat 2D plane. And this is a mistake that I make all the time. Like, I kick myself later when I see it. The outline and the geometry of something that's far away in the background or even the midground can overlap visually with something that's in the foreground. And when presented on a 2D plane, like a photo, the lines just, blend right into each other. So you kind of need the lines to be like this, or you kind of have to go like that. So either, get higher or get lower, one of the two. A mistake I make all the time. As a matter of fact, I know I made it in some of these other images here. Now here I shot it as a landscape, and I feel like this actually works better as a landscape. I feel like you're then able to see more of the space and the environment. I like the width of it, and I feel like it's starting to work better. Now, what ended up happening at this point, you'll notice that there's a pretty big shift in color temperature here. This was actually like when it was near dark. I mean, it was getting really, really dark, and it was actually getting too dark to be shooting much more. So I ended up packing it up and leaving. And the funny thing is, the next day when I was out in Alabama Hills and I was out filming and shooting and doing all that, I kept thinking about this damn pool, and I kept thinking about, what would I do differently? Like, if I went back and shot it again, what would I do differently? And well, later on that night when the sun set again, I went back. So I went back and I started photographing it again. At this time, the sun was a little bit higher and the temperature was a little bit warmer. And unfortunately on this day, the light was nowhere near as good as this deep purple magenta that I had on the day before. This light was amazing. So when I went back the following day, I decided to, give this another try and try shooting it with just a very deliberate, straight center point perspective, just, nothing clever, in order to get this, really strong horizontal line to the pool and the water, and just dead on. Just do it just like that to make it very simple. And I don't know, I know that I tried it again a little bit later on. We're gonna see more attempts at it, but let me move forward. And one of the other things I tried was moving around here to this side, and this actually isn't that bad. The thing though that I don't feel like really works though, and the thing that kind of frustrates me, is I feel like there's not enough visual space here, and there's not enough visual space here. I really wish that I had backed up. If I had just been like a few feet back, or if I'd shot it just slightly more wide angle, I think this could have been a better image. And obviously, the sky is a little bit flat too. So could have been a better image, but it just wasn't. And here's the funny thing. After I took this image, for some reason I thought, yeah, maybe I should get closer. I don't know why I do this. I really do. I do this quite often, where I'll be looking at something, through the viewfinder or on the LCD screen on the back or something, and I'll think, you know what, I need to, bring that subject up in the frame a little bit more. I need to make it a little bit clearer and bring it more forward. And what I end up doing is, well, I mean, you can pretty much guess. I mean, I end up killing all the gutter that's over here. on the left and the right, and I just end up making it even more cramped. I mean, at least I diminished this down in here. This totally was just not working, unfortunately. So, of the two, I felt like that one turned out better. Anyway, so I started, trying to shoot like this as well. And I thought that I was being fairly clever here. And I remember shooting this and thinking, oh, this is great because, I have this pole that's kind of, in between the goalposts here. It's just right in between this empty space and the fence. So there's no overlapping of lines, in other words. So everything is isolated. And I don't know, it's okay. I mean, you kind of have this house here and there's kind of like this strong kind of 90-degree angle that's going on in the image here. And this, cutting back this way is kind of nice. I really like this diagonal because I feel like it gives the image depth. It really, just pulls the image back and gives it a really strong diagonal presence and gives it some action. Let's see. Okay, so then I started trying this again from the night before because there was something about the grouping of these elements. There was something about this and this and this, and then all of this in here. Anyway, this one, that one's mostly the same. I think I was just trying out different focal points there. And here is where things started to get interesting. This is when I shifted my perspective and I started moving around towards the other side. And I noticed this ladder here. This ladder, just became really important. And there was something just visually for me that was really interesting about this ladder because what it effectively does is that it connects all of this. It connects the water up out of the pool, through the grass, back here into the salt flats, and then back here into the mountains, in the background. And there's just something, this like connective device that I thought was really interesting, that was kind of like bridging the gap between these worlds. And I kind of became transfixed on this ladder. I kept trying to figure out what to do with this ladder. So you're going to see a number of attempts here. And I was really just trying to figure out through these images here, I was trying to figure out the right placement for like this junction point between, this coming in this way and this way. Like what should the ratio be? Like, should this be like, like 60 and this should be 40, or, where should it be balanced? Should this be just dead center down the middle of the frame? Or maybe it should be a little bit off center like it is here. Sometimes I think you can create some interesting energy by purposely going off center it's kind of like almost like a blue note or something, like on a scale. It's something that's just a little bit off that I think catches the eye because so many things today are perfect. So many things today are so well engineered and designed that you don't see a lot of flaws anymore, in other words, or at least you hope you don't. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much about this, but this is something that I kind of struggle with. And I remember struggling with this when I was out there, thinking about where to place that corner. And I decided to do something really extreme with this one and just do almost like an 80-20 here with the ratio between the two. I like the fact that the ladder is just right here in the middle of this open space. So it just leads you straight up into here and into these crazy mountains in the back. Unfortunately, I got the camera low enough to where I really should be just annotating this thing. I keep forgetting I could, actually draw on this thing. I just love the fact that the ladder leads you straight up through there. And the top of the fence line here is sitting underneath the ridge of the mountains, so the geometry is not overlaying, and everything is just very neatly stacked, right? So you have, the water, you have the wall, you have the grass, the fence, the mountains, and the clouds. So anyway, I just kept working this for a while, and you can usually tell when you're onto something, when you're feeling good about an image, when you just keep taking it over and over again, like expecting something to change. It's almost like you're just so excited about it that you just want to keep pressing the shutter button. All right, now here is where I don't think I actually noticed this at first, and it kind of grabbed my attention, but you'll notice down here, there's this wheelbarrow that someone like pushed into the pool, and it's just down here in the pool. And I thought, wow, this is actually pretty cool because this is almost like, like something you would see in a classic landscape photo where they tell you how you have to have something, right up front in the foreground and then midground and then background. And I thought, yeah, so we have this here. So I have the wheelbarrow, coming up through the ladder, coming up into the mountains in the back. And I felt like at this point that by including it, I felt like I was actually making the image worse. I felt like it was becoming too muddled, a little too complex? Is my intent this? Like, is that the image? Or is this the image? Like, what is it that I want to direct the viewer's eye to? And sometimes the answer can be both. It depends on the image. But I feel like I'd rather have like a single clear point of view than something that has like, 2 points of view competing for attention. Again, try to do this kind of staggered approach through the frame. Decided to back up a little bit and try it from back here again. And this one is really interesting to me. This one kind of took me by surprise when I looked at it later. There's a number of, I think, of interesting things going on in this shot. I mean, first you have this, really strong vertical line that's just leading you right from the bottom of the frame. There's all this kind of like messy weirdness over here in the left hand, on the left side of the frame, which I think helps focus, your attention over here instead. You have this nice kind of cascade, stair step, literally coming up out of the pool diagonally up from the bottom right. And then you have like all these, crazy branches that are sticking up above the fence over here. And this little pocket, this little pocket here, this little window that, kind of gives you some hint that there's something beyond the fence. And maybe the image is better by simplifying and getting down lower and using the fence to block out more of it. I don't know. I would love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But one of the interesting things about this image, and let me show you, is the fact that after I took this image, I moved on. Like I took that image once. Sometimes I will take like 50 images of something from more or less the same vantage point, more or less the same composition, just slight little adjustments and tweaks. And then I'll just do one random what I think in the moment is a throwaway image, and that image ends up being one of the better ones. It's weird. And I guess this also speaks to the need to focus on coverage. That term I used before, where it's mostly about just capturing as many images as you possibly can, just trying as many different, focal lengths, as many different compositions, because sometimes you never know what you're gonna get. This is where I feel like things started to get kind of interesting again. This is when I started trying to shoot it a little more dead on, but there was something about this that started to work for me that I liked. I really liked this like strong horizontal line moving left to right across the frame. The fence here, again with the stacked elements, like, the grass through here, the edge of the pool here, the water, and then, how the mountains kind of sit right here in this opening in the fence right here. And you're able to see, the salt flats in the back, and then this, coming out of the right-hand corner here to give the image some depth. So it's not just, going completely straight across the image. It does get interrupted right here to break the frame and create this angle here. This, and I think there's another one here. Yeah, there's kind of like some stuff in here that's a little bit messy, but that's the kind of thing that could be cloned out and cleaned up a little bit in Photoshop, not a big deal. But again, I love the depth of the angle intersecting with this straight line, the ladder, coming straight up through here and then out into the grass and up into the mountains back here. And I just like the interplay of it all. I like this weird juxtaposition again of these gorgeous mountains in the background and this salt flat and everything, framed in front by this really strange, murky, sad pool. If you have any thoughts, any critiques, anything that you would care to share, please do so down in the comments below. Well, folks, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. This was a new format for me. This is not something I've attempted before. I haven't tried this before. Most of the time when I'm talking about photography, I'm talking about like editing and processing images, or I'm showing finished images in the context of, some other topic, but not like, straight up raw images off of the SD card and showing all of them, like showing all of the images, the ones that normally I would only see, like in my own Lightroom catalog and no one else would ever see. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know down in the comments. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, take a moment and do that as well, so you can, so we can do this again in the future. That's it for me, everyone. I will see you next time.